Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in, and it's an absolute honour to be a part of the Gluten-Free Living Show 2021. It's just nice to be asked. So I was asked to come here today. Well, I say come here, it's a bit weird, isn't it, this year? I'm sitting in my kitchen at home, you're wherever you are in Ireland or elsewhere in the world, and yeah, I've been asked to do a cooking demo. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. If you don't know who I am, my name is Becky Excell, and I am a gluten-free... Well, let's start from the beginning. So firstly, I am gluten-free. I've been gluten-free for the last 12 years. So yeah, that's why I make recipes. So I have a blog called Gluten-Free Cup of Tea, which I've been doing since 2013, and I just create lots of recipes on there. And very recently, this year, I've actually had 2 cookbooks out. So I've had this one. This came out in February. It's called How to Make Anything Gluten-Free. And then I've had this one, which came out at the end of September. It's called How to Bake Anything Gluten-Free. And yeah, it's crazy to have these out. But basically, the whole point of the books is that the recipes are really simple. They're things that, you know, I chose things for the books because they're things that I miss, things that I remember eating when I was a kid growing up, and now suddenly I can't eat. And they're things that, you know, I go out to a bakery, especially with this one, the new one. I go out to a bakery and I can't eat anything, and I'm with people who can, and they're all getting iced buns, cinnamon rolls, all that, and I can't have it. So I made a book that is kind of like, think of this book as a bakery, your own bakery in your own home, because that's what it can do. And I promise neither of these books, neither of them have difficult to source ingredients. It's not expensive to make the stuff, and it's just really easy and really, really fun. So yeah, I thought what I'd do today is I would make a recipe from one of the books. So with this one, the first book, this is a lot of savoury stuff. So I'll give you a bit of a run through, because people always ask me whenever I talk about the books, what's in them and what makes them different from each other. So this one is How to Make Anything Gluten-Free. So the only word change is make. And this has a load of like savoury recipes. So you've got fakeaways, you've got loads of dinners and stuff, but also you've got your baking, you've got your bread, and you've got your desserts. So there's lots of stuff in here. I won't flick through it because you can't see, can you? And then the second book, obviously, Bake is the change in the name. And this is just loads and loads of baking. So you've still got some savoury recipes in there, but you've got a lot more donuts, cakes, you've got your desserts, you've got bread. And then what I'm going to make a recipe from today is from the Christmas chapter. So I was really, really wanting there to be a Christmas chapter in this book, because I feel like Christmas is that time of year where we gluten-free people feel like we miss out. Like, Christmas is a massive social occasion, right? But it's not just a social occasion as in just hanging out with friends and family and stuff. It's about the food. The food is massive at Christmas. It's probably the biggest time of year for food. And I always find that so often in the past I've missed out on things, and I've just had, for instance, like a dry Christmas roast dinner without gravy, or I haven't had Yorkshire puddings, or, you know, which actually, Yorkshire puddings and gravy both in here. But also lots of the little cakes and bakes at Christmas I've never had. I'd never had a Stollen, for instance, and that is exactly what's in here. I've got some really nice Stollen Bites in this book. Let me find it. Should have found it before I started this. Here you go. So, got some nice Stollen Bites there. And that is the recipe that I thought I would show you today. It's really, really easy to make, and I'll just take the camera over there to the kitchen and just run you through all the ingredients, how to make it, so that you can make some. I'll show you some different variations, and yeah, I promise you, they're the sort of thing that not only probably you, being gluten-free watching this, will enjoy, but your whole family will enjoy. And yeah, I just wanted to show you that you really can bake anything, make anything gluten-free. It's not difficult, and it really doesn't have to be scary. So if you're someone who is maybe new to being diagnosed celiac, I promise you, if you're finding that it seems difficult, it definitely does get better. It's not the end of the world, I promise. And And there are so many people out there who are in the exact same position as you, who will be really willing to help you, just like me. Facebook, for instance, is a great place where there's loads of groups. I've got a Facebook group which is just really, really nice and friendly. I call us all a family in there because we all just chat and help each other, and we get people come in saying, oh, I'm newly diagnosed, or, you know, my son has just been diagnosed, or I'm worried about this or that, and we just help each other. So never feel alone. And yeah, I mean, I'm always happy to help. Both of my books have really good intros as well, which give you sort of a little rundown about, you know, advice and tips on just being gluten-free generally. So yeah, I guess you're here for the cooking demo, aren't you? I have been waffling on for quite a few minutes now. So I'll be quiet and we'll make some amazing gluten-free Stollen Bites. Okay, so first things first, let me show you all the ingredients that you'll need to make these Stollen Bites. The full measurements and everything are in the second book, How to Bake Anything Gluten-Free, but I'll just show you all the ingredients that you'll need. All really, really simple. So the main ingredient, well, the biggest ingredient, I guess, is this. This is gluten-free self-raising flour. If you don't have self-raising flour where you are, and you only have like gluten-free plain flour, you can make your own self-raising flour. I've got a recipe in the book for it. Really, really simple. It's just sort of adding some baking powder to the flour and a little bit of xanthan gum. So that's that. Then we have got some sultanas here. Now, I've chosen sultanas today, but you could switch up your dried fruit to whatever you want it to be, or not have dried fruit at all. If you're not a dried fruit fan, doesn't matter, you can still make these and be absolutely delicious. I've got an egg. I've got some ground almonds. I have got a little bit of caster sugar. You could use granulated sugar or probably brown sugar. You could use whatever you want with that. I've got some milk here, and this milk I'm going to gently warm and mix with a bit of lemon juice, and that's going to make sort of a buttermilk consistency. So with this is like dairy milk, but you could use dairy-free milk and it works really, really well. Then I have got some almond extract here. I have got some xanthan gum, which if you are new to gluten-free, this is a very key ingredient in gluten-free baking. I've got some baking powder. This is gluten-free baking powder. Make sure you always check, because sometimes baking powder isn't gluten-free. Then I have got a bit of lemon zest here, but for a recipe like this you could use another citrus zest or none. So you could use orange. I wouldn't probably use lime, but lemon's what I've chosen today. And then I have got some marzipan. So I know there's a bit of a love-hate thing with marzipan, but in Stollen, you need your marzipan, I say. So I've kind of grated this as best I could. It was kind of hard to. But yeah, you could use this one, which is a white marzipan. If you've got the yellow, brightly coloured marzipan, you can use that as well. What else have I got? Oh, I've got some icing sugar. So this is for the end to dust them off and make them look pretty. So I think that is all the ingredients that we need. No, I've actually forgotten one ingredient, but I will get it out in a second. We need some butter, obviously, but the butter needs to be super, super cold, so it's in my fridge still. But yeah, that is everything that we're gonna need, plus the butter. Right, so hopefully you can see all right. Obviously, need to move these all out of the way. At this point, I wish I had a bigger kitchen, because there is no space for this. But let me just move all of this out and then we'll begin. So actually, one thing I have done since you last saw is that I have added some of the lemon juice to this milk and heated it just gently, and you might be able to see that it doesn't look particularly nice on top now. It's kind of curdled, which is what we want. It's kind of a buttermilk thing. I do this a little bit in advance just because you just want to do it a few minutes ahead of when you want to use it, because otherwise it doesn't curdle, and that's really what you want, because otherwise it will be too thin, and if it's too thin then your mixture will be far, far too sticky. So put that there for now. Right, and then let's get my bowl in. I'm using a very nice bowl today, nice pink one. I never use this one, but I thought special occasion. So yeah, the first ingredients that we're gonna need is our flour. So that's our gluten-free self-raising flour. And then I'm gonna need some of my baking powder. So about a teaspoon of baking powder. And when I say teaspoon, I tend to mean like a level teaspoon, not a heaped one. People often ask that. And yeah, if I mean a heaped teaspoon, I'll say it. But if I just say teaspoon, I mean like level. Then we've got our xanthan gum, which this goes a long way, so you don't need much. About a quarter teaspoon of that. about that much. Because if you put too much in, it'll get really sort of gummy and horrible. And also, one thing I will say is that my gluten-free self-raising flour also already had a little bit of xanthan gum in, and I added a little bit extra because I think it really does help. So what we're going to do, just mix it all together, just so it's nice and combined. And then we're going to get our butter, which, as you would have heard earlier, almost forgot, but it is in the fridge, staying really nice and cool. And what I'm going to do is rub it in. So here's my butter. I've kept it in the fridge, so it's really nice and cold. And if you've got warm hands, for instance, you're someone who has hot hands, put them under some cold water before you start, because you don't want this to start melting. You want to be able to rub it in, so it sort of comes, you know, it's a bit like breadcrumbs at the end. So I'm just going to mix it in so it's all covered nicely in the flour. And then we'll do some rubbing in, which, to be honest, whenever I do a cooking demo, whether it's a video one like this or a live one, I always seem to be rubbing in butter into flour, and it's, I must say, I feel like everyone gets really bored just watching me do this, because what is there to see? So, as this is a video, why don't we just speed it up so that you don't have to watch this, and I'll be back when the breadcrumbs are done. And I said breadcrumbs, I don't mean when the breadcrumbs are done, I mean when this looks a bit like breadcrumbs. Right, so you can probably see now that all the sort of butter is combined into it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some of the other ingredients. So we have got some caster sugar here. As I said, you could use different sugars if that's what you have. Granulated and caster are very similar. If you have granulated and want to make caster, you can just blend it in like a food processor, and it will become caster sugar because it's just a more fine version. So I've got that in. Then I've got some ground almonds here, which give it that lovely taste and also the texture. Ground almonds really help with like a moisture, which is just so good. Then I have got my sultanas, which obviously I said earlier that you could use other dried fruit. So like cherries and stuff like that. You could use chocolate chips if you wanted to. But another thing that you can do, which I haven't done today, these are just dry sultanas, but for a really like Christmassy sort of twist, you could soak these. You could soak them in something like amaretto or rum or whatever sort of flavours you like with mincemeat and stuff at Christmas. You could soak them, and that could be really nice. I think I'm going to do that next time, but this time just doing it like this. Right, there we go. So that's all of those, and then the final ingredient I'm going to add at this point is my grated marzipan. So I attempted to grate this morning, but it was quite warm at the time. I'd recommend, if you want to grate marzipan, to do it when it's really cold, because otherwise it starts to clump together quite a lot, which doesn't matter, but it's better to have it sort of grated in this, because then you get lots of it sort of dispersed between everything, but it should break up quite a lot once we go in the flour. And also another thing that you can do, a lot of people who have made my Stollen Bites before have, instead of grating it in, or in addition, they have put a little bit of like a little chunk of Stollen in the middle, a chunk of marzipan in the middle of each Stollen Bite, so you get like this sort of little treat of marzipan, a bit like how, you know, your classic Stollen is. So you can do that if you want, but I am just going to sort of try and break up my marzipan. If I've got a few clumps, that's fine. I'm just going to mix it in. And that is getting there now. I mean, it doesn't look anything like Stollen Bites at this stage, but I promise you it will soon. So, like you can see here, this is a big bit of marzipan. We can just sort of break it up with our fingers if you want it all sort of evenly dispersed and smaller, but it doesn't really matter. So, that is that. I say that is that, but this wouldn't be a cooking demo if I didn't forget something. I need to put that lemon zest in. So put that in, give it a good mix around. Again, so evenly dispersed. There we go. Perfect. And that is that. Right, so I'll just push this to one side for the second, and I'll bring in my wet ingredients. So obviously spoken about this before, the sort of milky buttermilk thing. I've got my egg, so I'm going to crack that into there as well. There we go. Oh no, did a bit of thing go into there, a bit of shell. I didn't see. Oh well, if it did, it did. We'll sort that out. And then we're going to put in some almond extract. So I'm going to put 2 teaspoons into here. And then we'll just beat that all together just to get the egg sorted, hopefully destroy the shell. But yeah, as I said, this recipe is in How to Bake Anything Gluten-Free, so definitely check it out. Along with, you know, we've got mince pies, Christmas pudding, Christmas cake, so many different things, and then some savoury things as well, like sausage roll, pigs in blankets. There's a lot of stuff so that us gluten-free people, we don't miss out, ever. I will not let us miss out. So that obviously doesn't look particularly pleasant at the moment, never does, don't worry. What we're going to do now, get that bowl back into shot, and we'll just sort of make a little bit of a well. And what we're going to do is we're going to gradually sort of add this in, and we're going to use something, either my sort of metal fork or a metal knife, to just sort of cut it in. So what we'll be doing is sort of putting a bit of the egg in, or egg milk mixture, whatever you want to call it, and just cutting it in, and keep cutting it in until we get some sort of dough. It will be kind of a sticky dough, but that's fine. So I'll just add a little bit in now. There we go. And then I'll use a knife for this, I think. And I'm just going to keep sort of cutting it. And it feels like you're doing nothing. Like, it just looks really dry, which you'd be like, right, there's so much flour, this is never ever going to work. But promise me? I promise you that this will work. So we just need to keep cutting it through, adding a little bit more. Don't add it all at the same time, and don't just sort of try and, I don't know, mash it together with your hands, because what you're trying to do is trying to get sort of all the dry ingredients to be evenly sort of coated and hydrated, so that you don't get any sort of dry pockets, and it's all nice and soft and delicious. And honestly, this smells great even when it's not in the oven. So you can start to see that it's coming together a little bit more. We've still got quite a bit of the mixture left, so I'm just literally doing this really nice and gradually, but it'll be there in a minute. The way that I have always made recipes, and you know, the way that I decide what I'm gonna bake and stuff, is just by things that I wish I could eat. All those things that I used to eat, and suddenly, for no reason, no like fault of my own, they've all been taken away from me. So once upon a time, I could go to the supermarket and have a jam donut. I can't anymore, but I could look at them and I could smell them, and I still really want them. So what I did was make my own recipe for jam donuts, because that's all you can do really. There's not that many places. I don't know around where you live, but where I live, there isn't a huge amount of you know, there's no gluten-free bakeries or anything special like that. I know there are some in different parts of the world and different parts of different countries and stuff, but where I live, there's nothing like that at all. So for me, it's make your own, or you don't have anything, and that's just not cool. And I realised whilst I was doing this and kind of making stuff for myself, that there were lots of other people as well who miss the jam donut, miss the croissant. The croissant is something that I worked on for over a year, and there's a croissant in the new book, and it's hard, it's difficult, it's not the easiest thing to make, it takes a while, but once you get the hang of it, it's great. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone is reunited with those foods that they thought they'd never eat again, and just make people happy, because we shouldn't feel sad just because we've been told we can't eat certain foods. It's actually, you know, for many people who have celiac disease, it's a good thing that we know, you know, because then you can sort yourself out. You know that you're not hurting yourself anymore, doing any long-term damage, because it's not just about those, you know, stomach aches and feeling poorly after eating gluten. It's about all the long-term damage that's also being done. So it's really important that we do eat gluten-free, and it's really important that we eat nice gluten-free food so that we don't feel sad and depressed about it all, because we shouldn't feel like that. But I know in the past, when I was first gluten-free 12 years ago, there was nothing in the supermarkets. There was literally nothing, which is why I started doing a lot of recipes and stuff. But there were no options, and the breads were so bad, like so bad. It was very sad and depressing. So, you know, these days things have improved so much, and I know if you're newly gluten-free, you might think, oh, I haven't got much, but just honestly, compared to what there was, you know, 30 years ago, supposedly people were having gluten-free bread. You could only get it on prescription, and also it came in a tin. So I don't think we have it quite so bad now, but I completely get that at first it's a little bit of a shock, which is why, you know, this recipe today that I'm showing you, nothing has been stuff that you couldn't easily find in the supermarket. Probably stuff that you might even have in your cupboard, especially this time of year. So hopefully, you know, just showing that if you do a little bit of cooking yourself, and home-baked stuff is so much better anyway, gluten-free or not, hopefully I can show you that you don't have to miss out, and you can teach yourself stuff. If you're a cook already or a baker, then great. But if you're not, this is a cool little hobby to take up, and you can enjoy what you make, which is never a bad thing. So there we go. It is sticky, it's really sticky. So I'll press my hands on it and show you what my fingers come out like. Yeah, you can see it's a bit sticky. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this onto, take it out of the bowl, I'm gonna put it on a floured surface and use the flour a little bit. But one of the most important things, similarly to scones or scones with this, is that you don't want to overwork the dough. You don't want to be sort of rolling it loads and playing with it. If you do that, then when you bake them, they'll be really tough. So although we need to use a bit of flour just to make the dough a little bit more manageable, at the same time, we don't want to play with it too much. Right, so let's move this out the way briefly. Clear our surface. Now I've got some of my gluten-free self-raising flour. I always just use the same flour when I'm dusting surfaces and stuff, just so that it's the same as what's in there, because it's going to get into the dough a little bit. So get it nicely covered like this. There we go. That will do. And then we'll get our dough. We'll bring it out. There we go. We'll get nicely floured hands. Bring that into the middle so you can see it well. And you see, whilst it was sticky a minute ago, it's instantly, as long as we keep it nicely floured, it's good. And just like probably loads of you, I am not some sort of genius or some sort of person who could do things perfectly all the time. No doubt, loads of times when I do this, it gets really sticky. But you just have to think about it. Like, if something's a bit sticky, that means it's a bit wet. You just need a little bit of extra flour. If it's too dry and crumbly, then maybe you need a little bit extra milk. It's just sort of, I think baking of course is a science, but I'm not a scientist and I can bake. So I think it's just playing about, a bit of trial and error, and you'll get there. So this is now our ready to go Stollen Bite dough, I guess. One thing I've never done with this, which if anyone does, let me know. I've never just baked it like this. I should, because it'd be quite nice. You could have slices of it then. So that's something that maybe one of you could try if you want to. If you want to, let me know, because I think my contact details are on the website, I think. So you can always message me. Also, all my social media are always the same. It's just at Becky Excell, and I'm always happy to chatter away. Anyway, going off on a tangent. So what we want to do now is we want to take bits of this, so break bits off, make it into little balls. So I'd say like dough ball size. I'll show you what I mean. And then lightly flatten them, and then I'm going to put them onto my baking sheet to bake. So I'll cut this off with a knife, I think. There we go. Got a little bit of that. And obviously the inside will be a little bit stickier because it hasn't had the flour to it. But what we want to do is, I'd say that's about a dough ball size, if you can kind of judge that. And then all we want to do is, whilst it's in a ball now, but we want to flatten it, but only slightly. You don't want to flatten it too much because they spread a little bit. So you just want them a bit like that. and then we'll just put them onto our baking tray, which I'll show you them all on the baking tray in a minute, because it will show you how close together you can put them, because you don't want them too far apart, you don't want them too close together, because you don't want them to all sort of spread and touch each other. I know how annoying that is. So yeah, just do this with all of your dough. You might need a couple of baking trays if your baking trays aren't too big. But yeah, let me just do that. I won't bore you and make you watch me do it with this massive bit of dough. Obviously, another thing with this is that if you, for instance, didn't want to make so many, you can half the mixture. I know it's got 1 egg in it, so if you want to half an egg, then generally what I would do is I would just either use a small egg, or I would beat 1 egg and then just use half of it that way, and use the other half in scrambled eggs or something like that. And also another thing, a reason why you don't need to half the mixture is that these can be frozen, which is great if they get to the freezer. So yeah, I'm just going to put these onto my tray now. Oh, and also actually, before I forget, if you wanted to make it so that you had a little bit of marzipan in the middle, this would be the good point to do it. So you could just press it down, put a little bit of marzipan, and then sort of fold it over to bring it all together. And then you'd have your sort of secret treat of marzipan in the middle of each of your Stollen Bites. Right, so obviously you can see I've still got loads of dough to go, but I thought I would put my first batch in. So I've put them in. This is a decent sized baking tray. As you can see, it fills most of the space. And I've put 6 on here, and I've put them that apart. I don't know how far apart that is. A couple of inches? An inch? No, it's not an inch, is it? An inch is about that. So you can see how far apart they are. So just sometimes they don't spread, sometimes they do. So better be safe than sorry. I put them about this far apart. And then I am going to bake these in the oven, which I haven't spoken about the oven yet, have I? Oven needs to be on 200 degrees C fan, which is 220 degrees, which is 425 Fahrenheit, I think. I think those are all right. So yeah, really hot oven for these, and they don't cook for very long. So we're gonna bake them for about 12 to 15 minutes until they're nice and golden and they look cooked. So check after 12, but they might take up to 15. It depends how big you make them. If you make them a little bit bigger, they'll take a little bit longer. And also everyone's ovens are different. I've come to realize this, that even my oven, as it ages and gets a bit older, it's just a bit worse. So yeah, just check on them. But yeah, I'll put these in and I'll just keep working on the rest, and I'll show you them when they're completely done. Okay, so the first batch are out of the oven. They are looking absolutely awesome and they smell ridiculous. They smell so good. So what I'm gonna do is I'll let them cool a little bit on the tray, because obviously they're more delicate when they're warm. Then I'll transfer them over to a cooling rack, and when they're almost cool, I will dust them all with icing sugar. So I'll just use a little sieve and dust them around, and then they're the sort of thing that you can eat cold or you can eat warm. I love eating them slightly warm. I think they're so nice. I think they're better warm, but cold, warm, however you feel, these are good. So I'm just gonna put my other batches in, and then it will be time for me to, well, eat some Stollen Bites, and maybe get Mark to eat some Stollen Bites as well. We shall see. I feel very grateful that you guys have invited me to do this cooking demo, because it's meant I've made these and I can enjoy them, and fingers crossed lots of you will enjoy them soon too. That would just, yeah, I would love to see it if you do make them. But yeah, I need to go and put these down, let them cool, and yeah. Here you go. These are my Stollen Bites. They smell so nice. I even do have a couple where I put a big lump of marzipan in the middle in the end, just because why not? So the final thing that we need to do here, as I said, just dust with a bit of icing sugar. I've got this little, I think it's like a tea strainer or something, but it works so well for dusting icing sugar. So let me just get some in there. 1 second. So there we go. And then we can just sort of dust them. And they just look so nice and Christmassy. They smell Christmassy, and I would challenge anyone who's not gluten-free to say these taste gluten-free. They don't taste gluten-free, they just taste amazing. So, there you go. Take your pick. If you like one. Unfortunately, I'm not in your house right now, so you'll have to make your own. But I hope that this video has been really useful in doing so. And hopefully in the future, I'll be able to do a cooking demo right in front of you if you come to another show, and maybe you can have a taster because these are good. Perfect for Christmas time, perfect for now. I don't know if you think of now as being Christmassy. I mean, it's past Halloween, so I do. I get in the Christmas spirit on the 1st of November. But these are just the nicest things in the world. Right, so there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, then, and you know, if you want to make them, then the recipe is in my brand new book, How to Bake Anything Gluten-Free, in the Christmas section with tons of other Christmas recipes, as well as all the other recipes. I think I've gone on about that enough now. But yeah, in here. What else have I got to say? Because I've got one of these, so I just want to go and eat it. Yeah, so if you want to chat to me, speak to me, find lots more recipes and stuff, then all social media, so you know, your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, even your TikTok these days, and YouTube, I'm all at Becky Excell, so you can check me out there. Oh, and of course, as well as the books, I have got a blog which is glutenfreecupoftea.co.uk, and over there is hundreds of recipes that I put up for the past however many years, 8 years that I've been doing this. So there's lots and lots of really, I think they're good recipes, quite good recipes, and lots of information as well. So yeah, I will also see if I can get somewhere it linked my Facebook group, because my Facebook group, as I said earlier, amazing place. Everyone is so kind and lovely, and yeah, there's people from all over the world. We've got a lot of Irish people, we've got people from the UK, we've got people from Australia, America, Canada, literally everywhere. It's just such a nice, fun group of people with all a common interest. Common interest, I don't know if it's an interest, but basically we all have to be gluten-free. So we all just chat about that and give each other tips, advice, and make each other feel good. So yeah, I'll try and get that to be linked somewhere around. But for now, I am going to love you and leave you and go and enjoy my Stollen. So yeah, hope to see you soon, and thank you very much for watching.